Hello and welcome to another edition of the Writer's Room. It is I, your host, J.Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit. And with me tonight so far is Bill Sylvie, the Dungeon Delver.
Hello.
And hopefully we can get Yang in here pretty soon and you two can go head to head on world building. Because you have different opinions and arguing is great for radio.
It sure is. It sure is. If I got off on some ranty YouTube stuff, I could probably get another 10,000 viewers like that. But I'm just a mellow guy, Ishi. I'm just laid back and easygoing.
Okay, so tonight the topic is world building. And before we get started, as always, let your friends know we are live right now because, well, as we know, YouTube sucks and they're not telling anyone we're on the air. Also, they're unsubscribing a lot of you from this channel, so make sure you're subscribed. In the near future, I'm going to actually set up a new channel for exclusively just this show. So maybe that'll solve our problems. Then maybe not. But the topic tonight is going to be world building. And hopefully we can answer your questions on the topic of world building. I've been pretty prolific myself in how I approach the subject. And then we've got the Dungeon Delver, who was the Padawan of Gary Gygax, the original world builder of them all, I suppose. And, you know, if there's anybody who knows anything about world building, it's people who write role-playing games.
Little bit. It comes with the territory.
So we will get down to the business of world building. I guess for the first one, I think I want to bring up the world that I felt was the most comprehensively unique to me. I mean, I had Titanium Rain, but that series never really got to go where it should have and really become what it could have been. So the book that I did that was the most all-encompassing world-building kind of book was War Kaiju. Mm-hmm. And in my book, War Kaiju, it is an alternate retelling of the Cold War. So it starts actually with, in this setting, the Manhattan Project does not produce an atom bomb. No, it produces a giant atomic monster, which the U.S. military can control. And instead of dropping a bomb onto Nagasaki and Hiroshima, nope, they unleash this giant atomic lizard onto Tokyo. And if there's any parallels to a certain movie, they're entirely intentional. Now, that was the seed that built the entire world. The way that I came up with the concept for War Kaiju was the idea was essentially, I had just gotten off a book. I was very, very tired. The book itself was a bit depressing. So I thought I would go back to my youth and, you know, enjoy something that I really, really love. And, you know, one of those things being kaiju films. And I made the horrible mistake of starting with the first Godzilla film, Gojira. That's not a fun film. It's a great film, but not a fun one. Then the rest got more interesting. Or not interesting, more lighthearted. The first one's amazing. That's a classic. Mm-hmm. But anyway, sitting there watching, an idea came to me that these monsters were, you know, Godzilla was originally symbolically the bomb. And then later, the United States relationship with Japan was what it symbolized. But what if it were literally a monster? And that seed bloomed into entire worlds. That entire world being a Cold War that was based on atomic monsters rather than atomic bombs. And that one seed changes everything. And that is what I grew the world out of, was, what if instead of atomic bombs, you had atomic monsters? Yep. Well, for one, people would be far more ready to use them because you don't have certain problems like radiation. I also had the idea that the atomic testing that created the monsters were mutating normal creatures. So there was that. And the backstory of where the monsters came from had an alien origin, so I tied Roswell into it. So there was a lot of UFO lore as well. And in making World War Kaiju, I did a comprehensive study of the Cold War and the relations there, and just started making little twists and changes, seeding in, well, again, what if it were a monster instead of a bomb? And what if this was technology that had been salvaged from aliens? And it goes from there. And it is amazing how just from that an entire universe bloomed. If you've got any questions about how that was put together, go ahead and ask. But I would say the first thing that really shaped it was, one, now you had a weapon that people weren't as afraid to use. That's pretty much what kept us from going to World War III. Everyone was afraid of the consequences. Whereas a giant monster, as horrifying as it is far more controllable. It is.
It is. You still have MAD, though, except in your universe, the M stands for Monster Assured Destruction.
Yeah, Mutual Monster. Yeah.
MMAD.
Yeah. And there was also all the technology that came out of these monsters and controlling these monsters, and the technology they needed to build to fight these monsters. And it was weird that all you needed was one little tweak, and then just start taking the logical question of, well, if this is the case, then this. If this is the case, then this. The other key event in history I changed. In the backstory, there's two alien races, one that's long forgotten, that had scattered all these Kai crystals on Earth as part of an armistice with their enemy, that both sides would get rid of their atomic monsters and dump them on this no-name planet that turned out to be Earth. And we're digging up these crystals and creating these monsters from them. And then there are the Martians who, for their own reasons, have suddenly become interested now that we've awoken the monsters. So the other key moment in history that I changed was that the crash at Roswell was actually the Martians coming to try and broker a deal with the U.S. government, and Truman not really liking them too much and unleashing one of the monsters on their saucer.
Oops.
And yeah, it went from there. And there's even a supplement at the back of the book with like articles of the history of this world and the various technology. And it's kind of like a found media. So half the book's a story and the other half's like this story told through found media and like military documents.
I love stuff like that. I love I love the found document, found footage, false document kind of thing. That kind of world building to me is like almost better than the story, you know?
Well, this one, the way the story is told is that you get flashbacks and then it keeps going back forward to 1974, I believe, where a journalist is talking to an old CIA agent who's doing a tell-all of what really caused World War III, what really happened. So you see the, screwed up, blown out 1973 world of post-Monster War. And you keep getting these flashbacks to the different events. And then after that, you get all the found documents. I bring in MJ-12 and the fact that Carl Sagan was actually a member of MJ-12. Or not a member. No, he was part of Blue Book. And I make him a member of MJ. Yeah, I'm not bullshitting you. Carl Sagan was a member of Project Blue Book.
Oh, I know he was a member of Project Blue Book. I was going to make a sarcastic comment. Wait, he wasn't part of MJ-12?
But yeah, had a lot of fun doing that book. That's one of the ones I think I might be able to get back to. I've found a certain artist I think I can hire to help me finish that one. But we'll have to talk to him later.
Cool. Just he doesn't work exclusively in Poser, does he?
No. This guy, actually, I saw his work recently. He's a listener of the show. Frankly, I am surprised that the big two didn't snatch him up. But then again, his politics may make it, though, that he can't work for the big two. I mean, the guy is like probably, I would say, one of the most talented artists I've come across who's unrecognized. It's like, why aren't you known? Why aren't you employed?
I can't wait to see it, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring him on the show in a week or two, hopefully, to talk about his book. But yeah, I was blown away.
Cool.
Wait, we got a question here. Come on. What kind of Martians did you decide on? Okay, well, the idea is the twist is the Martians are kind of like the Ferengi. They were universal salesmen and opportunists, and they completely screwed up their planet, and that they wanted to basically turn Earth into a third world country and pretty much exploit the resources and labor. And the secret plot twist, which isn't too much of a plot twist, the reason they won't invade and why they're trying to get us to destroy ourselves is because they're great mercantilists. They're great salesmen and con artists. They suck at war. They're not very good at war. And if you think about it, that's not really a huge leap, because I mean, not every species is going to have the talent for warfare that we do. I don't imagine cows, if they evolved into more sentient creatures, would be the greatest warriors.
No, probably not.
And the Martians are very much, actually, they kind of look like Earth versus the Martians. No, not Earth versus, it was Santa Claus versus the Martians. I made them look like that. I mean, the whole thing kind of looks vaguely like a B movie. Purposely, artistically, the art looks like a B movie.
Nice.
So, does anyone have? Do you want to throw in your 2 cents about world building? And we have the amazing Florida woman Fiona with us.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Sadly, I was stuck with the coworker that takes like 5 to 10 minutes to do the daily checks before we lock up. It's like, no, do it as we lock up.
Okay, so Bill was going to throw in his 2 cents on world building.
There you go.
Well, I mean, it's good. Build worlds. But I've kind of... I want to keep this as far from, he's just talking about role-playing games as possible, because I think this kind of thinking, regardless of whether you're rolling dice or just sitting and thinking about things logically and getting feedback, can be really critical to world building. And you guys are actual writers of prose and can shout me down if I start to say something that's too kooky here. But I started years ago thinking, what would happen if, and the if is a creature from the abyss. In Dungeons and Dragons cosmology, there's hell and the abyss, and they're separate places. They're both bad, obviously. The abyss is where chaotic evil creatures are, and hell is where lawful evil creatures are. It's a difference between the mafia and the Manson family, essentially. And of the two, in broad terms, the abyss is worse. But
okay, so you drop the creature from the abyss into Earth or wherever.
Well, what if a creature from the abyss, through magical means, became lawful and good? Completely 180-degree personality change. Now, there are mechanical in-game that I'm not going to launch into considerations behind that, but as a non-player character, that is, as a character that I, as a game master, would essentially write and interact with the players. And in the particular case of the example I'm thinking about all the time, because this individual joined the players on their quests, what would their drive and motivation be? You know, okay, you have all the powers of evil and darkness and anti-life, all of that. what happens when you want to try and turn that to good? And I'm not just talking about an old West villain who decides
Yeah,
to,
well, I mean, so what would happen?
well, that's what's evolving now. And I said, okay, well, the thing in question would, maybe say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to try and, atone for what I did, find a powerful wizard to permanently make me into a normal human, and then that would be the end of it. And so I started thinking about this and thinking about the various churches in a polytheistic but essentially good pantheon of religious beliefs. How are individual churches going to react to a demon that's now walking around trying to be good? Are some of them going to be, this is a miraculous event of redemption, and what is our god or goddess if not forgiving and can provide absolution? Or are there going to be essentially good people who are like, that thing is from the abyss, it's a danger, it could change its nature back, it could kill us all, and it has billions of millennia of horrible behavior to atone for, and that's not something that just happens just because you say, hey, I want to be good now, or I got changed to be good now. So what happens, if the party says, hey, this person is good and they're with us now and everything's all hunky-dory, when the entire town that you just showed up in are like, what is that thing? Let's look through the Bible here. Oh yeah, that's right out of the abyss. We got to kill it. So, and if the players stop that, now you got churches intervening against each other just by the presence of this one thing.
Got the chain reactions of holy wars start to spark.
Chain reactions of holy wars. You've got deities, good deities who might look at the non-player character who has changed now going, well, could I use this to demonstrate the miracle of grace and redemption? Or is the deity or deities in question going to say, no, this thing could once again revert? Are the higher powered demons in the abyss going to say, nobody gets out, nobody just walks away?
Just as an example, then, we're getting to, it's just like saying, well, what if the atomic bomb was really an atomic monster? And that one change spirals or branches off into thousands of other changes in what would have been a normal world.
Exactly. And you used the perfect term. One seed just exploded out into millions of possibilities. And I literally I'm going to put my lack of creativity on display here a little bit. I was thinking, oh, okay, well, it's a she will spend a lot of money, find a high-level wizard, get a wish cast on her to completely, she'll just be a human. The demon powers and the dark shadow on her soul, whatever, will be gone, and she'll just be a human. And I sat down with a couple of fellow dungeon masters, and one of them, like, just right here, he got me right between the eyes. He's like, you have Spock in your campaign now.
Either that or a template that they used on Xena. Somebody's trying to do good and has a very horrid past behind them.
Actually, I thought
right.
Thing.
So yeah, he and I talked about this, and as we talked, as he was saying, oh, this could happen, it just started opening up more branches, not about the character, although yes, about the character, but the world building. To bring this back around, the world building aspect of it. This is not just a case of somebody saying, I'm going to go play for that other baseball team. Yeah. This is like, imagine if Hideki Tojo just showed up in a rowboat off San Francisco in 1943 and said, I want to be an American army leader now. I'll tell you guys all the stuff that all the bad plans that Japan had. Let me lead American troops in battle.
The things. So
all of the things. So it's just over the past weeks and months that I've introduced this tiny, what I thought was a cool but essentially disposable story element in my game has literally shaped the world. And will continue to. This is not going to be an event or a character that I'm just going to casually set aside. This is something that's rippling out across the entire gamut. And if I was writing prose and had this same kind of epiphany, I would be bouncing off the walls, thinking about all the different possibilities. As a game master, I am.
So the thing is, with world building, a lot of people are like struggling, like, I got to be 100% original. It's like, no, you don't. Just take the 2 cents on the wheel and go in a direction you're interested in seeing.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
What about talk about world building from your end, Florida lady.
From my end, I know I've talked about it on my channel, but I see it more like an onion, where like I'll reveal little layers here and there, but I won't kill people with exposition. I'll let them figure out stuff on their own, or even through the characters, or at a later date. You know, I try to introduce stuff in stages and not blast everybody all at once like Wheel of Time did. It's like, oh dear God, slog. That's my biggest thing. I sprinkle stuff around, but I don't try to beat people over the head with it. Some people, basically go more of a Sanderson route where they got to world build everything out the walls. It's like, no, just take a few broad strokes and then go from there. See where it develops. You know, you might end up in a different spot than you thought later on. Too many people want to be so original. It's like, no, just stuff everything in there that you're interested in, and eventually a world will develop on its own. And then you can have characters react to changes. That's usually what it is, mostly.
So what was the starting point for Uplift Protocol?
For me, well, initially in the first draft, it was the stereotypical, the main character wakes up from a dream. Eventually, I learned how to do this in a more exciting fashion. But I wanted to just showcase like what was one of the main conflicts. And I figured, you know what? Here, I'll have the creepy Kronos guy come out in the open and decimate Mars. Hi! Because usually if you're stuck on something in a plot, just be like, okay, have your villain poke something and then have the heroes react. Because you don't have to have the heroes be extremely proactive until later on when stuff is really hitting the fan. So yeah, if you're ever at a loss of like where something should go, it's like, okay, if the heroes don't have much to do right now, what is the villain doing that the heroes will have to fight against?
Well, that's the beauty of prose versus role-playing games, because I can march a party right up to the gates of hell and put a pile of magic armor and weapons and everything, and they'll turn right around and say, no, we want to go to the fairy meadow instead. And it's fine. So you guys can make your characters do things. I have to put up with whatever they throw at me at the table.
Well, I know at one point, like when I was in high school, I'd be like, okay, if they want to go in that direction, I'll just throw, all this stuff I prepped over here. Okay, now that's like a berserk fairy guard that took too much drugs and went insane because of some eldritch creature. There we go. Suddenly the fairy pool is exciting or something.
Sure.
But you just never know what direction people will go on when it comes to tabletop.
Yep.
So somebody here made the comment, let me open it up, that writing short stories in a world and dropping bits and pieces of exploring different aspects of the world is a great method. Again, Howard with Conan and others. And this is a lesson I love doing. Yeah, one of my big inspirations. William Gibson, Neuromancer.
Oh, yeah. Gotta love the classics, man.
Yes. And I want to show you excellent world building. And this is something I try to do in my own writing. I was so impressed with it. This is the very beginning of the book. The sky above the port was the color of television, tuned to a dead channel. It's not like I'm using Kate, I heard someone say, as he shoulders his way through the crowded shouldered his way through the crowd around the door of the chat. It's like my body has developed this massive drug deficiency. It was a sprawl voice and a sprawl joke. The Chatsubo is a bar for professional expatriates. You could drink there for a week and never hear 2 words in Japanese. Okay, that's not a whole lot. I mean, there's very few words, right?
Mhm.
In that little tiny bit, one, the sky's the color. Okay, so you know what the sky is like. You get that it's overcast. It's not like I'm using. You already know the tone of the setting, and drugs are present. Okay? He shoulders his way through the doors into the chat. You know it's crowded. It's a sprawl voice and a sprawl joke. Okay, so there you go. You've got another concept of the world introduced. A bar for professional expatriates. You could drink there. Now you know that he's in Japan and he's in a place where there aren't a lot of Japanese people. Rats was tending bar, his prosthetic arm jerking monotonously as he filled trays of glasses with draft Kirin. He saw a case and smiled, his work a web work of Eastern European steel and brown decay. Case found a place at the bar between the unlikely tan on one of Loney Zone's girls, Loney Zone's whores, and the crisp naval uniform of a tall African whose cheekbones were ridged with precise rows of tribal scars. Wage was in here earlier with 2 Joe boys, Rat said, shoving a draft across the bar with his good hand. Maybe some business with him, Case? You have setting right there. Again, cybernetics. Again, the draft Kirin, reinstating that it's in Japan. The webwork of teeth, Eastern European steel. You know he's a warbet from Eastern Europe. Mm-hmm. Do you see how... okay, and we've already, because he sat next to a whore, we know the name of the local pimp.
Yep.
That is excellent world building that is not beating you over the head with exposition. And that, I think, is one of the most excellent lessons on how to scatter breadcrumbs of information that later on actually mean quite a bit. It's not just random detail and mood scattered in just for random detail and mood. Almost all of that at some point serves a purpose.
Well, that, and sometimes where you introduce a story, the characters will know more about that setting than the reader will.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and Gibson stuff. I just finished Count Zero, and all of this stuff is so textured. I mean, environmentally, it's 180 degrees around from Chiba City, mm-hmm. and you know, the bars and so forth in the video arcades and such. But in Count Zero, when Turner is at the desert site waiting for Mitchell's extraction,
yeah,
his description of a half-completed construction site was so on point. I read that at a time in my life when I was I would do a lot of construction work with my dad, and there were a lot of places here in Florida where there had been a construction bust in the early 70s. So we moved here in 80. My dad started doing construction work, and weekends were, hey, bud, come, you know, I need some help on a construction site. Come hang drywall with me. So, you know, there's my 12, 13-year-old self out hanging drywall. And just a couple of years later, reading Count Zero, and again, Turner's out in the Sonora Desert on a previously abandoned construction site. I can see in my mind's eye from Gibson's work, overlaid with my memories of being there, exactly what that's like. The raw concrete, the stumps of as yet unplumbed and unconnected PVC pipe coming up out of the foundations of these buildings that they're hiding out in, waiting for Mitchell to try and escape from Moss Biolabs. You know, all of that is so well put together, and it's little tiny details, you know, crushed beer cans, you know, scraps of PCB, printed circuit board, just scattered out there. It's just, I'm repeating myself. I think you know what I'm saying. It's just so wonderfully done.
So another bit of world building, and this is from my story, Scars. Just again, I don't think I've got quite the skill of Gibson, but again, to show how you can do world building. And this is, a 50-page story. It's a short novella, so you don't have a lot of time to build an entire universe. But I try to make it feel real.
Mhm.
So this guy's just gotten up in the morning. He's woken up from a horrible nightmare, and he says, 5 minutes later, I'm in the kitchen. In my palm is breakfast, half a collection of the best pharmaceuticals my policy can buy, a serotonin inhibitor to stabilize mood, an aminoketamine stimulant to keep me balanced, an over-the-counter antacid to beat back the nausea, an anti-inflammation to quell the swelling in my stump, and then there's the sledgehammer, clonocylclarol, the magic diazepam derivative that is able to smash even the worst post-traumatic episode back. I take a swig off the tap water, choke it down. The alkaline kiss of tainted tasted water washes away the bitter chalk aftertaste. Now all that's left is to wait, shiver, and watch the clock. I'm standing in my usual spot, back against the fridge, arms folded, eyes locked on the second hand as it ticks, 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 tracing its path over the stylized numerals, each shape resembling an animal of the Chinese zodiac. The clock is cheap tourist trash, molded in red recycled plastic and flecked in gold paint. I picked it up last time I was in Henan. I bought it from a stall for outside the spaceport. That was a year ago. Might as well have been a lifetime. The memory is distant, foreign, like it belongs to somebody else. But in a way, I suppose it does. And in that brief thing, you immediately get a sense of what the experience is like of PTSD by getting each little description of what each pill needs to do. I mentioned the bit about the clock, right? And it's got the symbol of the Chinese zodiac. You find he bought it as a tourist trap. You find that it was at a spaceport. And as this goes on, you start to realize this guy was an astronaut. And that all these hints of all the places he's been and this is how I was laying out the breadcrumbs. Anyway, just another example.
No, it's a great piece of world building, and don't knock yourself, man. I mean, your little cornucopia of pharmaceutical prose there. I mean, that's as good as anything I've read on the Gibson when he gets on his little, I'm gonna talk about drugs for a paragraph. That'll get people's attention. No, you really bring it home.
Well, the drugs are there to kind of, again, ease in the fact that, when you're dealing with that kind of post-traumatic stress, you take a lot of drugs. But by saying what each one is for, it kind of gives you a sense of what the person's experiencing.
Right on.
But anyway, let's see. We've got other questions here. Does Fiona have any comments to toss in?
Sometimes I like to just do world building through like little quotes at the beginning of chapters or issues.
I love doing that.
Because it's a way that way you can get some information from other characters or what's happening around the universe, but without because bless Mr. Weber, I do still love Mr. David Weber's books, but he is a technological info dump. And you'll have pages of this is how these missiles work. I'm like, oh God.
One of my favorite sci-fi authors is a hard military SF author, David Drake. Same thing, exactly the same thing. I know more about fictional fusion engine powered tanks and their guns than I could possibly use, but God damn it, he made sure that I know it.
Yeah, it is just but I just want to get to the pew pew. Okay, I know the missiles are powerful, but where's the pew pew?
Yeah.
But some people like that. Some people, that's what they crave. And if your particular brand of military sci-fi doesn't have that in there, then certain parts of the audience will be like, oh, this isn't Screwdriver techie enough. Which is why I made Uplift Protocol a space fantasy. so I don't have to go into the screwdriver level of things.
There you go.
Well,
You'll let fans write stuff like that in fan wikis and just move on.
Well, it's using the various bits of and pieces of, again, found media, like quotes from the world, to break up scenes, which is something I love doing. I mean, all of Scars is done like that. And the fun part of that is, as I break it up, what I'm doing is either I'm giving windows into space or windows into the various technology that produced an intelligent rat. And the fun part about that is which ones are real and which ones aren't. But Frank Herbert did that with Dune, and it brought a richness to his world that otherwise wouldn't be there. And yeah, I'm all for putting those little excerpts in.
Oh yeah, and even though some people reacted pretty interestingly to Karen Travis's contributions to big name IP, I still like the fact that in most of her books she does open up with like little quotes from different events that happened in her stories. So that's where I also got that, like, ooh, I like to do that too. So there you have it.
Are there any books that are good for world building, either inspirational, providing ideas, good examples for what we should keep in mind when world building?
If you're doing fantasy, I don't mean to go and write a story set in the world of Greyhawk, but skipping the nuts and bolts parts of it, and there's actually not much nuts and bolts in terms of, oh, I need to learn how to play D&D, I need to be a tabletop nerd to grok this. There is a set you can buy. It's the World of Greyhawk box set, but it's now available as a PDF, and you can get it printed into a nice single volume book with print on demand. That Gary wrote, TSR released many years ago, but it's just enough of a framework to give you an idea of how to build a framework and then build out from that framework. Am I making any sense there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the World of Greyhawk set, there's not a huge amount of, oh God, this is nerd stuff in it. There's actual, like, here's the kingdom of Alyssa. This is its population. This is its population breakdown. This many dwarves, this many elves, this many humans. This is the size of their standing army. This is their capital city. Here's a brief history and a little bit of interaction of the nearby kingdoms and maybe one or two notable people. This is the kingdom of Nyrond. Same thing. And it catalogs all that stuff, which for a dungeon master or even, a player, not even a person running a game, it's a nice little encyclopedic thing. Even if you're not going to play D&D, even if you're not going to write a single note about I cast magic missile of the darkness, it gives you an idea of where you can start building your world's framework and then deciding on the meaty places in that framework that you want to start working out from and how they all interconnect. It's really a quite brilliant little piece of writing.
So we've got one here. From my limited experience writing, the reader shouldn't notice anything the main character wouldn't, even if the narrator is omniscient. I don't necessarily agree with that.
It depends. Like, I purposely have Eliza miss things when other characters around her will pick up on some innuendo that totally flies over her head. I think it kind of depends on what the personality is of the character. Are they more on the ball in certain arenas versus others? But I mainly do it to just showcase that Eliza doesn't have perfect recall of everything, even though I based like a decent chunk of her superpowers on a mix of the Green Lantern Corps and like Superman himself. So I just wanted to make it because it's kind of like a running gag, like with her also not cursing much, if at all, versus everybody else having to donate to the curse jar. So it just depends on what you want to do. And sometimes with certain books, I noticed that like the writer wants readers to pick up on certain things before the characters do, and then they sometimes have characters pick up on things before the reader does. They kind of mix it together.
No, that makes sense. One thing that I would also bring up is, a great example. You want examples of world building, okay? Really good example of world building. Watch the original Star Trek series, and hopefully you can find the ones that aren't re-edited by Paramount, because they've been re-editing them on the recent releases. Get the DVD if you can, not the Blu-ray. And even though this was a fledgling series, the world was still very new, the writers really did go out of their way to reference other episodes and have a kind of a consistent world. I would say the same thing's very true later with Next Generation and DS9. They really went out of their way to make a believable world. And yeah, there were massive plot holes, things that just didn't make sense. Replicator technology should have meant that a lot of things didn't happen, like death. But, just for storytelling's sake, they didn't bother with it. But there was a world where, there was an internal logic to it, okay? And then you flip that around and you watch the Abrams Star Trek and notice that nothing has any consistency. Literally every scene is, well, this would be cool now. That's the do's and don'ts of world building. And yeah, you can get away with that for one or two movies. But as far as creating a legacy and a world and something that's going to last, no. Did Abrams' Star Trek last? No. So that would be one example. The Star Wars universe did an excellent job for the first 3 films and in the extended universe of creating a very consistent world that was mapped out, that really felt coherent, like it was lived in, versus the made-by-committee abortions that we got now. And again, did they last? Do they hold up scrutiny? If you come out of a film and you're like, that looked neat, but why did they do that? It's over. You failed. Your world doesn't make sense. There's such a thing as called an idiot plot. And I would say, unfortunately, that dominates our media right now. And there are 3 types of idiot plots. 1, the plot functions because the protagonist is a complete idiot. Now, that's okay for comedy. Actually, that's okay for a lot of things, but you keep in mind the plot functions because your character's a moron. Say, like, just about every film with Jason Voorhees. Most of the things the characters are doing are pretty stupid.
Yeah.
2, the plot functions because everybody's a moron. Unless it's a comedy, that's not a good thing. And that would be most of Abrams' work. Or the other type of Abrams' work. The plot functions because the universe itself, including the characters, and reality itself are morons.
A good example of people being moronic in some instances, Galaxy Quest is a good example of how you can use the idiot ball to get the plot going forward and have it make sense.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, you can have protagonists or even casts where, they're morons. That's fine. And, that's great for comedy. Yep.
But I'm trying to think, I know I keep going back to this, but if you really examine Babylon 5, even though JMS is kind of off the reservation, Babylon 5 in itself is built very well world building wise. You have all sorts of, and it's not overkill in details like Wheel of Time is. It has just enough glue to keep everything going together and make sense. Because you have, when it comes to world building, you have to set up what just the basic ground rules are, and then you can go from there. But you got to make sure you adhere to those ground rules, and then you can build it outward from there. It just takes a few simple building blocks. You don't have to go this is all the bloodline of all the rulers in this galaxy, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to go that far. You really don't. Some people, that's how they end up in world building mode with writing forever. They never actually do the plot part where characters do something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, JMS didn't treat us like idiots. Basically, I think is when it came to his universe building, he did not treat us like idiots. We were let in on things as they happened, but you never felt a sense of he did that to fix this broken crap from the beginning. He had a plan. So that in stuff that we saw in season 3, we thought back about on that we saw in season 1 and went, oh,
yeah,
okay.
dude laid the groundwork, and it is
Yeah.
common knowledge that it's called like a book made TV form, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest wrench, wasn't it, that was it Sinclair left in the first season?
Well, yeah, the actor, didn't come out till later because JMS requested it, but he had mental issues where his memory and everything else was going, and it's just like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, the actor was actually losing it?
Yeah, I mean, by no problems of his own. It's just he started deteriorating. So
Ouch.
It was very, very sad.
they did
Well,
make
we
sure
got-
to check in on him, but eventually the poor cast lost track of him. They really that cast they were really close knit,
Yeah.
Okay. I guess another example of plot holes in world building, okay? One of the ones that Marvel seems to have never really managed to fix was the fact that you've got the Avengers and this world of superheroes where superheroes are looked upon as heroes, the Avengers, but yet mutants are despised and hated. And those two things really never seem to function very well together.
It is a little odd, I was born with the ability to turn my body into organic steel versus I screwed around with a reactor and now I can walk through walls. Why is one an abomination and the other is a miracle?
Why aren't all the mutants just lying? Oh yeah, well, chemistry class. I was playing in chemistry class and something happened. I don't know.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
But book wise, really fast-paced world building that I saw, even though I've kind of tapered off a bit, is the Galaxy's Edge series by Onspock and Cole. They give you the information in little bursts through the characters and their actions rather than dumping it all on your head all at once. Like, I kind of look at it like that's the sprinkle method of world building.
That's the best way to do it. That is absolutely the best way to do it. I think the number one thing you want to do is make it feel organic. Like nothing is being dumped on the reader, that everything is happening for a reason, even if that reason actually is to show them something. But it should always feel natural. And the best type of exposition is when the reader doesn't even know it's happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I love the quote stuff at the beginning, because it's like giving you little tidbits to make people interested. Because I know that sometimes that's what interests me about books, is like just seeing how does this tie together with this? Like linking little mysteries together until you got the bigger picture going.
Yeah, I think one of the cooler bits in classic SF, and hopefully I won't make poor Ishii have an aneurysm by talking about this so soon after the Monday night rant. But in Dune, Herbert treats us
some of the best world building ever done.
Herbert treats us right out of the gate, not with an action scene, not with a slow burn scene like we get in the beginning of Neuromancer, but with a quote from a history book about the world we're about to enter. So we know right off the bat that really important people are involved and really important matters are about to be discussed. He sets us down, makes sure we're comfy, puts our feet up on the ottoman, and leans in and says, "A beginning is a delicate time." And that quote goes on. And who is that quote attributed to? Princess Irulan. Oh, wow. Okay. So we're not just getting the beats of the story here. we're being told an epic history. We are being introduced to this world in grand fashion, and we know that it has weight, and we know that it has gravity.
And space princesses.
And space princesses, yeah.
Bar One Studio says the best exposition in the movie was Count Adamar, sex position flirtation about the rules of medieval jousting in A Knight's Tale.
Never saw that one.
No.
It's on my to-do list.
Any comments on sex position?
Suddenly I have a flashback to Anita Blake. No.
I am just a humble game master, so it is very much just fade to black.
Yeah,
me.
please, for the love of God. I've only encountered, I can name on one hand, like, the people that have done sex scenes that don't devolve into, like, please insert Gerter.
Yeah.
Well, no. Sex position was the term that I think arose out of Game of Thrones, where every time they needed to give you a big chunk of plot, they'd have it talked about. It would happen while people were having sex, and they just talk about it.
Oi.
So the audience wouldn't get bored.
Yeah.
Or turn the channel.
Okay. I'll take your word on that.
Oi.
No, seriously, it was called sex position.
I mean, I believe you. I'm not poo-pooing it at all. I just I never knew that was a thing, and now I know that's a thing. I watched up to like the middle of the second season of Game of Thrones, and I found it to be violent and ugly and mean and hateful and wretched, and I stopped watching it. So
Wolf says, if X-Men are supposed to be an allegory to the civil rights movement and gay rights and whatever make-believe rights people want these days, there shouldn't be any hate towards them. Well, no. What it is that it's an allegory for minority groups forming a militaristic team to fight the bad minority groups. So you just swap it around, pick what you want. So you could have like the X-Men are supposed to be gay people, right? So then there would be the Brotherhood of evil gay people, and they have to do battle to protect humanity.
And everybody was kung fu fighting.
I mean, see, the logic of it being a metaphor for the civil rights movement kind of falls apart when you realize they're actually going at it, kicking each other's ass and engaging in full-scale warfare to protect humanity from themselves. And that doesn't really work very well in the terms of civil rights.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's, you've got the X-Men, ostensible good guys, and then you got the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, ostensible bad guys. So you're starting to send very mixed messages there. It's like, these people just want civil rights. Okay, I get that. I understand. And they're demonstrating, that they can have a place, not just a place in society, but they can defend and protect. And, oh, by the way, they're having internecine warfare that could lead to hundreds or thousands of deaths on the street on a daily basis because
Horizon Talker says that it's actually pronounced Nambla, not Brotherhood.
Oh,
I would be all for a team of superheroic gay dudes getting together to do battle with Nambla. I would, actually, why don't they do that?
Didn't they do that in one of the South Park episodes?
yeah, probably.
Yeah, I want the most fabulously ripped gay dudes to put on tight outfits and beat up Nambla.
I'd buy an issue of it. For sure.
Okay, so we're coming to the end of the hour. Is there anything that anyone would like to say about world building? I don't know. I think we talked around the issue more than actually got to the issue, but that's okay.
Oh, I guess the biggest thing about world building is don't let it get so great that you lose track of the plot. The plot should help the world building, and the world building should help the plot, and make sure the characters interact with that world to validate the world building that you're doing. Basically.
Yes. And, we should only know as much as we need to know. There's absolutely no reason to stop the entire scene so that all of your characters can talk about the clash between the Trade Federation and the Republic.
Yeah.
You don't need 5 minutes of that.
Yeah, because even in my own series, like I will pause a scene if a character does have something genuine to add to it, and then I'll carry on again. Because they have, kind of like magic and holographic stuff that can showcase a scene in like a real time. Because I thought some games that had that aspect was pretty interesting, but I've noticed that, since books aren't contained by budget constraints, you can go anywhere you want in a book.
True, the special effects budget is much lower.
It's all in your mind. Whee!
Well, Infocom software back in the 80s, they used to say the best computer graphics in the world were the ones in your mind. And back in 1970s and 80s, that was very true.
Zork.
Zork. Basically all text adventures from them until it got bought by Activision and started making actual video games. But
oh man,
to directly address the question though about world building, do I have anything else to say? Don't take a lesson from me. Don't just set something aside and say that's a little thing. Don't be afraid to explore that thing. I have found out just in the very short period of time when I was telling you guys about just planting the seed, as Ishii put it so wonderfully. It's really taken off. It has helped me create my world. Take one little idea and start playing with what if, and just go up the branches. Just go up. Go up all the branches. Don't just say that's just a little thing, I'm just going to leave that go. And when it comes to building a world by details, by the greeblies, and I mean that in a very positive way, the add-ons like Ishii cataloging each phase of his character's PTSD with basically drawing a line across, here's the drugs, here's the symptoms they deal with, or Gibson's picking out the individual details of the Chatsubo. Little greebly bits like that can really, really help build your world for you.
Yeah, and if you have to even rent it from the library, do take a look at some of the Wheel of Time books, and you'll understand what it means when world building has run amok. The very minute details on the clothing of the characters. It's like, no, just describe what article of clothing might have some actual plot significance. Like, but eventually it got to the point where it was so overbloated that he would spend pages and pages, like 30-40 pages, describing the most minute things, and the plot would turn into like a snail's pace, and it's just like that's no way to treat a book. It's like, oh. So yeah, it's just all about moderation. But you'll only really understand how to do it is once you start writing. It's like you're going to start off like a toddler on a training wheel. That's okay. Again, I started off with Eliza waking up from a dream in draft 1 and them being in high school, and it just didn't click with me. And I wrote 40,000 words of that before I'm like, nah, let's start over.
Hey, Fiona, do you want next week we can talk about the list of maybe like the top 10 don'ts of fiction writing or starting your story? Because like you said, the dream, you got to be very careful. Scars opens with a dream, or waking up from a dream. You don't see the dream.
Yeah.
But you can do that correctly, but there are a list of don'ts.
Oh yeah. Like my way of when I initially had her wake up, it's like she crashed down onto the bed because she was floating, like to showcase some of the superpowers. But I'm just like, no, there's an more interesting way to showcase the demis in this particular setting. It's just I had eventually learned, like, but what'll really help people is like, that's why I read a lot of the old pulps. Read what you love and then really examine how they're laying things out, and then copy it. It's okay to copy, guys. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already there and it's been turning. Just add your 2 cents.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah, I would say read what you love. Definitely don't think you can write books if you're not reading them. If you're just writing but not reading books, no, it's never going to happen. But read the books you love, but also read bad books and figure out why they don't work. Really take them apart and say, okay, why does this book work? Why does this one suck? That's really useful. In fact, often knowing why a book is bad is more useful than knowing why a book is good.
I am sorry, world. I'm about to link Empress Teresa.
Well, yeah. We could talk about why that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That might be too painful.
But no, it actually showcases, since so many people have a hard time when it comes to book format and the whole show versus don't tell and all that, this thing is a perfect example of like when you should really just tell something really quickly versus you have to showcase a little tiny sliver of like the character actively doing something.
Okay, so Unqualified, thank you very much. He's urging all of you to check out my horror noir setting, Case File Arkham, Book 1 and 2, 1940s hard-boiled detective noir, set in a world where all of Lovecraft's horrors are very, very real. It's one of my, I think as far as my graphic novel work, that is my best work in graphic novels. Scars being my best prose work. But yeah, it's got all those things that you say you miss about comics. You can find them in there, especially if you liked old Vertigo books. This book should have been on Vertigo, but, well, we know what happened to them. They got woke. So thank you for the recommendation, Unqualified. Fiona puts up... wait, why are you promoting Empress... for what not
That's
to
an
do?
example for bad. You can You can see it from the sample. That's why I linked it. You can see the train wreck sample. I'm Teresa, the younger daughter of Everett and Elizabeth Sullivan, and I hope it's not bragging to say I was cute as heck at age 10. All right. Okay. Writer B says, okay, if you're going to open something, try to open with in media res or some point of action because people aren't going to be invested in the characters sight unseen. Like you, the writer, might know your characters and love them, but the general audience doesn't know a dang thing about them. So open on some action or some mystery or some main attraction of your plot.
Or as John Milius once said, if you're going to open a story and you want to get their attention, destroy an entire village.
Well, I did KO Mars there for a while. It got better because, superversive, yo.
Okay, so why don't you put up a link for your book, Fiona? Hey, anytime you want to do a show where we talk about it, I'm all for it. Anytime you're ready to talk about your story, we can do an episode.
Well, I've gotten a fair amount together even on my own channel, but I can talk more about my stuff if you want me to.
Well, why not? It might get you more readers.
There we go. It's now been linked. But yes, Empress Teresa is valuable in the fact that it's a first draft published.
Yeah. Oh, I'm trying to think of a book that I've read that was like, Kat's better than me on this one because she's had the stamina to actually finish terrible books. I tend not to.
Or if you want to know what not to do with more intimate scenes, take a look at a couple of the Nita Blake books in the library. You'll be like, what? If she can write that, anybody can write anything. Seriously. If you feel bad about your writing, just take a look at her shit.
Okay, below we've got the Uplift protocol posted now. So if you like reading something free and good, there you go. And finally, Bill, do you want to promote your channel?
Sure. You can
The
check me.
Padawan of Gary Gygax has a channel where he talks gaming.
I talk gaming. I'm currently we're elbow deep in a series on how to play first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I do a live stream 5 days a week. Sometimes I have guests on. I'm gonna get you on the show one of these days, Ishi. Even if I have to move it back so you're awake when it happens.
I'm sorry, my sleep's been so bad lately.
No. I just meant like, my show starts at 9:30 in the morning when most people, well, it starts at your 9:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
When most people don't want to be plunking down in front of a webcam to talk for an hour. But yeah, we do have guests on tomorrow. We're having Gabor Lux, a guy who has written some absolutely amazing. It's new stuff. It's compatible with old D&D. If you're part of the old school crowd, or you're a new school gamer and you want to get into old school gaming, please do check my channel out. I live stream to both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. I highly recommend watching the YouTube stream. It's much higher quality because of Facebook sucking. But but yeah, just stop on by. And if you stop by, please do click that subscribe button and click the bell. It helps out.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Peace.